Hey everybody, welcome to MovieDive, where we dive into some shit.
What? The Shape of Water is set in early 60s Baltimore. It has this cleaning lady who cleans in a high security government facility, and she lives her life basically interacting with two people mostly. Her best friend, played by Octavia Spencer, beautifully by Octavia Spencer, and her other friend, her neighbor, played by...
I want to say he's from Bird After Reading.
That does sound true. So she lives her life in this confine where she doesn't really get to communicate with anybody. And then in comes this amphibian man that they bring in. This creature. No one really knows what it is. The guy who's in charge of it, played by Michael Shannon, seems to hate it. Like, just really hates it.
Yeah, is a government agent sent in to track down some kind of like local urban legend monster.
Not local. You got it from the Amazon.
Well, in the Amazon it was local.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So like there's an Amazonian legend of this monster thing, god.
Yeah.
And and so he
drags it back to Baltimore.
So they drag it back to research it for America.
Yep. So we can win in the space war, because this movie, it has themes, from the 60s. So you have the racial themes, that just the burgeoning, the rise of the civil rights movement, and you also have the Cold War, and that's a lot of what takes place in this movie is revolving around tensions between Russia and the U.S. and how those governments kind of clash. So in this movie, they get this amphibian man so that America can win in the space war, because the Russians have put a dog in space and America's gotta beat him.
Cute, wonderful love story develops where
between the lady and
the mute lady,
fish man.
Yeah, the mute lady sees the fish man in this cage. She kind of bonds with him. They both can't talk, and so they're forced to figure each other out just through their interactions.
When he looks at me, he doesn't know how I am incomplete. He sees me as I am.
Sally Hawkins, who I absolutely adore.
Not heard, who I've actually never seen before. I love her.
Yeah. You probably have. Anyway, I
probably have.
I think she won or was nominated for an Oscar for Blue Jasmine.
I don't think I've seen that either.
Really? She was
amazing. I'm boycotting Tim Allen because he's a pedophile.
Woody Allen? Don't misalign. Don't malign.
Did I say Tim Allen?
Tim Allen. He's got his own problems.
It's going to come out.
Anywho, before I was aware... and still very problematically do have a love of Woody Allen films. I saw Blue Jasmine. She was in that movie, Blue Jasmine. She was amazing in it. And I've loved her since that. I've loved her actually since she was in this miniseries. What was it called? Fingersmith. She was in this miniseries way back where she like swaps places with a woman, something like that. Anyway.
Neat little story. What I liked about it is the absolutely unflinching and honest, I guess, portrayal of the 60s. Yeah. Of the 60s society, which I thought was interesting and kind of like plays into like the themes of their love story, where they're both kind of like, she runs with a bunch of outcasts, right? And it's an old gay man, a black woman, and what do you call it?
Amphibian man.
And a front. That's what what the G-man in the movie called it. He called it an affront.
Yeah.
It's a fish man god.
Mm-hmm.
There's supernatural powers involved.
We find out later. But the government never does. And I think it's interesting. That was probably my favorite part of the thing. The highly militaristic, completely utilitarian, like dehumanizing approach of the military and the science of the United States at the time basically brutalizes this creature to try to like extract its powers out of it or anything about it out of it by force. Yeah.
Basically precludes them from figuring out its actual powers. Mm-hmm. They turn it useless to them.
Through their brutality.
Through the way that they treat it.
You know, and that's interesting. And you saying that reminds me of Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
the way
actually, that's very
the way exactly what you mean. The way that like you can have this authoritarian society that's all like, you know, we got to go out there and destroy the enemy. So that's what America's doing. That's what Russia's doing.
Not just destroy the enemy. The way the cultural values of like this kind of society basically attempt to force everything around it to conform into like its own image of itself. Yeah. And so when you have like you have a society where it's like the virtue of it is to be like the upstanding white man of character, right? And then you have the society that treats that as like this idyllic like meme. Mm-hmm. You encounter something like a fish man that is in harmony with its environment. Mm-hmm. And it's like they're trying to forge it into something that it isn't. It can't. It's impossible.
The thing that was interesting, like when you were saying that with Starship Troopers, the way that the humans would learn about the bugs is by either torturing them or shooting them or stabbing them or doing something to where their brain was. And the way that the bugs would learn about humans is by stabbing them in the brain and just sucking out like whatever was in the brain. So both of these, rather than trying to communicate with each other or interact with each other, they are just violent and destructive towards each other. Yeah. And that's very much what's happening in this movie, because Michael Shannon at no point makes an effort to actually communicate with him. The amphibian man, he thinks he's just a thing. It's just a thing, just a big fish. Whereas Eliza, the main character, when she approaches him, she immediately tries to communicate with him, which is amazing. She's, tapping on the glass, seeing how he reacts, reacting to his reaction, attempting to feed him, attempting to, teach her a little bit of what she loves and seeing a little bit of what he's about. There's a give and take in their relationship that's completely absent in all the other authoritarian relationships. The relationship that Michael Shannon has with the general dude who runs him, or that
it's always like who you answer to.
Yeah,
rather
Bob
than like,
answering to the Russians,
as opposed
and they
to
never
like,
want to listen to each other. They are only giving orders, and they're like, I'm the one who gives the orders, and you listen. And if you can't, measure up, that's on you.
Yeah, so
might as well go off and die.
The movie very well like establishes both like that kind of environment and these characters that we end up like rooting against, and also hoping that our outcasts who don't fit into the regime, so to speak. Yeah, like you want them to you're rooting for them and you want them to persevere. And I think like that I think the movie does very well. It really puts a lot of pathos into our heroes.
Yeah.
I really like Guillermo del Toro's ability to just like portray dark like brutality kind of in a very unflinching way. Mm-hmm. And also it's just the way that he's nonchalant about it. Yeah. He's very like unflinching about it and just kind of looking at it and goes like, yeah, this happens. But you can still find beauty or love around or within it. And I like this is like kind of like also a consistent theme that I think he tries to put through his movies, and I like that. Like you got Pan's Labyrinth, where like life and love perseveres through like the Nazi occupation. Pacific Rim, life, love perseveres in the face of total obliteration.
The key in Pacific Rim is love and connection.
Yeah.
You can't operate those mechs without actually having a real connection with another human being. You can't just hop in there by yourself. Yeah. You need two people. He creates these movies with such heart. And the beautiful thing about this movie, if anybody else had done it, it would have been a hot mess. Because he combines all these different genres, romance and monster movie and an espionage thriller and what else? A fairy tale. It's like kind of like Beauty and the Beast. And it's all rolled into one. Oh, and musicals at one point, dancing around in the 30s, 40s musicals. He rolls those all up and he makes it alive. He gives it a heart, and he also makes it very relevant to today. Because a big theme in the movie is that you can't turn away from what's happening around you. You can't just look away from injustices in the world or you can try, but it's not really going to work out for you. It kind of makes you sick.
Nothing changes.
Yeah.
Like you're still. It's interesting. They show that through her neighbor and friend, the gay artist guy. He didn't want to get into the whole civil rights thing.
Yeah.
We're showed how he is still betrayed by the system that he refuses to stand up against. His homosexuality potentially cost him his job.
Yeah.
It gets him ostracized from what? Oh, it's like a diner.
Diner, pie
he goes
shop.
to a diner that he tries to go into and has a crush on the guy behind the counter. Turns out the guy doesn't appreciate that and doesn't appreciate his type of kind in this establishment.
Doesn't appreciate anything that isn't mainstream.
Right.
You can see that too because he rejects the black couple that walks in.
The futility of failing to resist, and at the same time the feeling of powerlessness when you do trying to conform. And I think that the movie kind of gives you that kind of hope that resisting it can pay off. When
Eliza tells Octavia that when she tells her that she's had sex with the amphibian man, there's no shame. She's just like, oh, really? You did? Well, how? Like, how? Like, how'd that work out? And she's just kind of supportive. She's like, well, I'm glad to see you happy, because she's probably never seen her like that because she's been alone the whole 10 years that they've known each other. Yeah. So they're filled with love in their hearts, even in that fear and even in being shut down and even in being marginalized by society. They respond to this situation with love. And that's what saves their characters. Whereas Michael Shannon's fucked because he's an asshole and he can only seems to be able to hate. Maybe he loves his kids. I don't know. But anything that's different from him, he's not open to it. And that's what it ultimately ends him.
Overall, I enjoyed it not in the most satisfying way, but I found it to be a fine movie that I liked.
Why wasn't it satisfying for you?
Well,
why weren't you satisfied?
There's some unsatisfying things about it. If you see any of his movies, they have a lot of things in them that are great, and a lot of things in them that are a bit off. Mm-hmm. And but in the end, you just it's not. You can't really. I don't know if it's hard to dislike his movies.
It really is.
In spite of I don't know. I usually come away from a Guillermo del Toro movie feeling man, there's some great things in it, and man, did some of it just annoy me.
Oh, really?
And I always feel that way about all of them.
Oh my god.
Here's my big thing about. I think this is a consistent theme in his movies in general. I think that he will rely on very obvious and cheap storytelling tropes to move the story along. For the sake of achieving his thematic or emotional message, he will use ass pulls, for lack of a better word, narratively. So sometimes things will just kind of happen just for the sake of putting the characters into the next scene. I always feel like it could have been done in a less abrasive way. Sometimes it's paced kind of weird.
Yeah, I can
Guillermo del Toro doesn't care if a scene goes on too long as it projects the kind of feeling that he wants.
Wait, what? I didn't feel like any scenes went on too long. Maybe
I don't think.
Maybe they went too fast to the ending, but I don't know if anything went on too long.
There's a couple of scenes where they go on for a bit, and then it goes now we're here, now we're here, now we're here, now we're here, and another scene that goes on for a while, and it's now we're here, now we're here, now we're here, and sometimes it's montagey, and sometimes it's very drawn out, and again, I don't think it's the worst. Mm-hmm. The worst part of it for me again is that Del Toro tends to sometimes just rush plot in a very kind of awkward way. I feel like he kind of... They end up working with this Russian scientist dude who is a spy. Yeah, Bob, who's a spy for the Soviets. He seems to, due to his what they establish as his incurious and scientific nature and some empathy towards others, he wants to help Eliza rescue the fishman monster, and he does. He helps him rescue him, But in the end, when he's put up against the corner and he was basically like shot and he's on his deathbed, he betrays them, and he betrays them to the G-Man, to the Michael Shannon
Which
G-Man.
I do not believe that at all. I don't believe that character would do that.
And the reason is that if you're following the story, there isn't really a way for Michael Shannon to suspect the helper ladies. And there's even a scene earlier where it's like, due to his pride, he overlooks them. Yeah. And it makes them seem like they're in the clear. So he has no path to them except for this guy. Yeah. And so there is for him like a path to this guy. He does find him. When he does find him, scuffles happen. Well, the guy ends up almost dying. When the guy like goes on and we understand that he's humane and that he cares, having him betray them on his deathbed feels like it's just there to put
so false.
Yeah, to put Michael Shannon into the final, boss act confrontation with our heroes.
If they had even, talk about extending a scene, if they had extended that scene just a little bit longer, if they had shown Michael Shannon torturing him, being sadistic, implementing some sort of interrogation techniques where you could see Bob being pushed.
Yeah, he kind of gave up like a little easy.
Michael Shannon basically went, I'm so prideful that there's no way you had to have had a strike team to perform this. What are the names of your strike team? Now, when he said that, I was like, Bob, just give them the names of the people that are sitting there. You could give them any names. Give him any 5 names, and he'll just run off on his circle, whatever.
You can give him nothing. You're dying.
Yeah, like, who cares? Yeah. And then he'll go off, and he'll probably die of blood poisoning because he got those fingers rotten off on his hand. But it's like Michael Shannon said that about the strike teams, and Bob laughed in his face, and he was like, you're so friggin' stupid. I'm going to tell you who exactly did it. And it was just, it just didn't sit right. Because there's no way, why would he put them in danger like that after helping them? Yeah. He wouldn't do that.
Otherwise, personally, not my type of movie. It's a period piece. Mm-hmm. It has musical elements in it. One specifically that annoyed me. It's a romance, which I'm just...
I'm on board for all of that.
I'm too like cis guy-y, and it's weird. Like I can't do the I'm not as interested in it. But everything considered, I think it's like it's a good movie. It's a good movie that like honestly portrays what it wants to portray, and still, again, fills you with a sense of hope and optimism in a dark time. And I'm 100% behind all of that.
This movie, it's exactly the sort of weirdness that I would like to see. It's Amelie if Amelie was even more weird, which I'm totally down for.
Recommend if you're...
I would definitely recommend
this movie. I'd say just watch it. Yeah, just watch it. It's great.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and comment your thoughts. Would particularly like to know what other movies that you think might vibe with this one, because I really enjoyed this movie. I would love to have other ones to compare it to. All right.
Share.